Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life with me, your host, Giuliano Grimaudo. All right, Mike, what's up, my friend?
Not a whole lot. I'm excited to be here, and it's cool to meet you.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining me. So, you and I have never met before. I don't know too much about you, and my listeners probably don't know anything. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways to introduce myself, but in the year 2025, I think what I like to do is give my age, where I grew up, and then kind of what I'm about right now in this
Sure.
iteration form of myself. So let's see, I'm 43 years old, and I grew up in the Berkeley Bay Area of California.
Okay.
And I think that heavily influenced a lot of my philosophy of like culture and society in America. And then I've since moved, and I've lived in like 9 states. I've visited all 50, and I landed in Phoenix, Arizona, which is about as not Berkeley, California as possible. So I say all that to say that like I'm kind of on a mission to just help people see that while we all have splendid differences, at the core, most people are just good and nice. And so I'm just kind of trying to be a vocal proponent of that strategy of dealing with what like some people
Yeah,
are saying are the end of times and others are saying are the beginning of times. And I'm
bro.
yeah.
Sorry, I'm only laughing
Yeah.
because
No, I would like to
you're
laugh.
me.
Yeah.
You're me.
That's awesome.
That's so like no joke. Like that's literally so. First of all, I live in Phoenix.
Oh no shit.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Swearing's okay, but that's awesome.
Yeah. No, you're fine. No. So no, I live in Phoenix as well, and I literally like if you listen to any of the previous episodes, that's what I say is like I feel like I've been through a lot. I've lived in a bunch of different states, and I ultimately have come to the conclusion that deep down people are good. And so I love this. This is amazing. We're already like hitting it off right off the bat. So this is great.
Seriously.
Yesterday
Where'd
I
you grow up?
actually, I grew up in Chicago. Well,
Okay,
I say
cool.
Chicago always, but it was the suburbs around Chicago, but you know, in Illinois.
But still, like kind of liberal, hanging, like
Yes.
yes, big city, yeah. So it's
Exactly. And then I lived in California for a little while. I lived in Florida for a little while. And then when my wife and I met, well, at the time she wasn't my wife when I met her.
Yeah.
I moved back to Chicago because that's where she was living, and then eventually we moved to Arizona. But yesterday I had someone on who we were just talking about this, like because he's lived in a bunch of different states as well, and how like transformative that can be on top of just traveling. Because for myself, I actually have not traveled a lot, like meaning like for vacation. Like the only time I've been out of the country for vacation was in our 1-year wedding anniversary to Portugal. So we like barely even touched Europe, right? It was like, and then came back. So I haven't done a ton of traveling, but we were talking about, you know, moving and how living in different places can really affect your views. So I'd love to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, and actually, I'm in my second marriage. It's also my final marriage.
Hey, same here.
Yeah, so we should have like a little like tally mark in the upper.
How many things do we have in common?
So my first marriage was actually to a. This is like an interesting story, especially right now with all the immigration talk and stuff going on in America. I was married to a woman who was born in the United States. Her parents were visiting on visas as students from Thailand, so they were Thai. Both ethnically and if you use the term race, I guess you could call it that. But and then when she was 2, they moved back after they both got master's degrees here to Thailand and was raised there. So she is a technically U.S. citizen. And the reason this matters is that when I married her, it wasn't like a big deal. It wasn't like I had to like go through green card stuff. You know, there was no
She was a U.S. citizen.
She was a U.S. citizen by birth, and then she came back here to get her own master's degree. So I met her in a master's program in California. Okay. And then we moved to Phoenix to save the marriage. And part of the moving to Phoenix to save the marriage was also because we were living part-time in Thailand. So we kept flying between the two countries. And the main reason I got a divorce is I realized that she was a bitter pill in both places. Like nothing was going to make her happy. And then that led to other things. So I'm not here to talk about a divorce so much as living and experiencing different places teaches you a lot about yourself. But also you can see that like, I'm sure you're familiar with this. No matter where I go, when I make friends, they treat me like Mike Oppenheim. They don't treat me like a new version of myself. Like I have the same reputation everywhere I've lived. You know, I might be slightly different based on like my career or something to people, but like the core of who I am doesn't change. And so that's helpful because I think a lot of people think that when you have problems, you can escape them or resolve them by moving. And I would say it might help you see that you have a problem, but
you
yeah,
know, it's funny. There's like that saying that no matter where you go, there you are.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, so traveling, it was like the seeing the 50 states was a goal. Like I loved
Mm,
driving, and I had a awesome dog who would like just sit on my lap while I drove, and then like make
nice.
himself home, and like he was easy going. So I would just visit people. I'd made a lot of friends, and a lot of
Okay.
them like moved across the country. So I've lived in 9 states though, and I also lived in Thailand for as much as I think I'm trying. It was either 4 months or 6 months, a few different times. So
Mm.
I say I'd lived there like casually, but it wasn't like I really, really had to live there. And also, I was like spoiled because I had my wife who speaks fluently, and she would take me places and like hold my hand literally, like like literally the first time in Bangkok, I was crossing a street. I was like, I can't do this. Like there are 45 lanes. There's like people pedaling, and there's like motorbikes, and I was just
So
like, oh my
funny.
god, yeah.
Wow. So, you know what's interesting is what you said about moving. So, I moved a lot when I was a kid, because my parents got divorced when I was like 10 or 11. And so we moved maybe like a handful of times before I became an adult and went and lived on my own. And what's really interesting to me is I've actually found that moving can be like a really nice like reset. And like there are times where like when I moved, it was an opportunity for me to like to create new habits or to like stop bad habits because like it was just like a fresh start, you know. Okay, so here's a good example. Not with me, but with so my wife and I have cats, and she so in our previous place, our cats always like both of every time we've had our cats, they always would just like come in our room and sleep with us. But it was super annoying because you know at like 3 in the morning they get the zoomies and they're running all over the place and they're running on your face and waking you up and all this stuff, and it was driving us insane. And also, my wife is pregnant with our first child, and
Nice,
so
congrats.
we thank you, we knew like because we have the crib in our room, we're like we don't want the cats to be able to come into the room because of the risk of them
Yeah.
like you know being on top of the kid and like suffocating or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, it's real.
So
That's not a fake. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Like that happens. So we're like, we can't, they can't be allowed in the room. But what they used to, when we used to like not let them in a room, every once in a while we would try and they would just lose their shit, right? They're sitting there like meowing, pawing at the door, scratching, like literally pulling carpet out from like the ground because they're trying to like dig their way in. And so when we moved, I was like, okay, here's a perfect opportunity. We're going to move. We will never let them in this room. Like from the day we move in there, and they're
Yeah.
totally fine
Yeah.
now. They're 100% okay.
Yeah.
Like they don't like, so every, you know, maybe once every couple weeks, they will sit outside the door and cry and be like, oh, I want to be in there. But that's like way different than like every night just clawing, trying to get in and freaking out. So anyway, I just think it's a good example, like, because it's true with cats, but I think it's true with us as people, right? Because it's essentially the same thing when it comes to behavior changes. I think sometimes having like this big reset on your life, which where you live is your environment, which very
Hmm.
much influences your habits. It's like it definitely can help. But what I'll say is, personality wise, moving to a new place, nothing's going to change.
Yeah. I'm actually so with you because I know I've definitely like moved, and like even just like where I shop can change, and then where you shop can
Mm.
change what you buy, and that can change what you eat.
Mm.
I totally agree that there's even like cognitive behavioral therapy says like if you don't do something for 3 weeks or you do it for 3 weeks, it sets in as a habit. And
Mm.
I've experimented with that like so many times in my life, and I think moving is like a cheat code for that because when you move, it's really easy to not see that it's 21 days. So quitting smoking cigarettes is a good
Mm.
example of that. Other things like that. And then the other thing I wanted to tell you, just because I have made a habit out of doing this, I have one piece of parenting advice for any new parent, which is
Okay.
don't listen to anyone's parenting advice. Like, like that is like from the bottom of my heart.
uh,
Just tell everyone, oh, thanks, and be like polite about it. Don't like
yeah.
be abrasive, but dude, it's not their kid, and it's not their
Mm.
wife, and it's not their house, and it's not their life, and it's not their plan for the future.
Yeah.
And you'll know if you raised a shitty kid. You'll know before other people are telling you. You'll just know. I mean, it's like yeah.
Uh, no,
So
I
anyway, congrats
honestly,
though, for real. It's
no, but
super
I
good.
love that. One of the things that I feel like I've learned over time is different things work for different people. And that might seem like obvious to say, but you like, and I think most people, if they hear that, they go, yeah, sure, different things work for different people. But you'll still sit there, and when someone else says, this is how it worked for me, you go, oh, okay, yeah. And you try to do exactly what they did, right? Whether it's like starting a business or making money a certain way or raising your kids a certain way, right? You try to listen to what other people tell you to do, but you forget, like, dude, different things work for different people. And so I totally agree. I think all of us know deep down what is the right move for us. And I think we
Mhm.
just need to trust ourselves more and
Yeah,
stop
totally.
listening to everyone else, because that's fine. Maybe it did work for them and maybe that was the best decision for them, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be the best decision for you with whatever you do. And I love that you mentioned that about parenting, because yeah, people definitely have an opinion.
Oh, dude. And not only do they have an opinion, but the unsolicited like
Yep.
approach to advice is just like so obnoxious. And also, like, especially when someone's like 3 generations removed from you and they're like, now remember
Mm.
when they're in school, and I'm like, you don't even know like how school works. School is like a kid has one headphone in and a teacher is running around with an IEP trying to figure out like how to teach 30
So
kids
funny.
who were trained to not go to school. And like, and so, um,
Yeah.
but also like, I say this as a joke, but I also can tell it's true. When you get a divorce, you get a PhD in marriage. You're
Mm.
speaking about like reflection and learning, and like even if you're hard to deal with and hard to live with and stuff in your second marriage, you still know what now was BS if it was accused of
Mm.
you versus like real. Like it's very obvious in your second marriage, and so I like
Interesting.
to. I'm bringing up a topic. I know it's your show, but like, do
No,
you
please.
um how do you feel like when, because we're both young, and like I think it kind of scares people or worries them when you bring up that you've had a divorce. Like I noticed
Oh
some
my
people.
gosh.
Yeah, so
No,
talk to me a
no,
little bit
listen to
about
me,
it.
listen to me. Okay, hold on. So if anybody who listens to my show, first of all, they should know I was divorced before, but even if they don't, listen. I One of the things I talk about all the time is that life is about living. Okay. And so like part of what that is like you go through things work out a certain way. Sometimes they work out the exact opposite of the way you planned. But the entire point is to enjoy it while you're in it and then look back and see what you can learn and make it better going forward. Like that's literally the whole point of everything. And so to me, I'm just like, no, 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 no. So, you know, it's actually hilarious. I totally agree with you. I feel like after my first marriage, okay, you can ask my wife, okay, not just me, but I will sit here and say, and I've asked her this to see if she feels the same way. But I genuinely, so we've been married now because it's 2025. We got married in 2018. So this year in
Wow.
November, it'll be 7 years. And before we got married, in my head, what I envisioned a great marriage looked like, what our marriage is right now is better than that. Like I can't
Wow, that's
even,
cool.
I like if you asked me what is a good marriage, like I could not have even put into words what our marriage is right now, but it's better than that. And I say this to say it's really easy for someone to be like, "Oh, you're divorced, so like clearly you're not good at relationships or whatever it might be." But I feel like if you really approach life with like this, you know, like a growth mindset, which I feel like is
Mhm.
like the whole basis of personal development, right? You just want to
Yeah.
improve your life. And if you look at life that way, I feel like there's not to be whatever, but it's like there's almost like nothing better than going through a divorce if you're a learner. Because you feel like you learn so much about yourself, about life, about people. And I literally did carry it forward. Like I carried
Mhm.
it forward, and now like I told you, we have like genuinely an amazing relationship. Like I could not, I can't even. There's no way that I could even improve our relationship. It's just amazing. And yeah, and I think if you approach life that way, I think that's how everything can be. Like every part of your life can be that way.
Yeah. Also, to people who say that getting a divorce means you're bad at relationships, I would say not knowing when to quit something makes you extra bad at a relationship. Staying
Mm,
in a toxic environment is a horrible relationship management, and you're freeing yourself and you're freeing the other person, whether they recognize it or not, or vice versa.
yeah,
If someone wants out, you got to let them leave. I mean, it doesn't
yeah,
make
yeah.
sense. It would be like trapping people in a country, like, and not letting them leave. That's crazy. Like if people don't want to be around you, you definitely don't want them around you. So
Yeah,
yeah.
great point.
Can I ask you, on a timeline scale,
Yeah.
did the marriage, was it easy peasy and awesome from like day one, or were there ups and downs for the first 3 5 years? Like when did this and I'm asking because I'm in
Yeah.
year 5 of this marriage,
Yeah.
and it does, like, it was like rocky because, well, first of all, it's her first marriage, so I'm watching someone
Mm,
like take off training
same here.
wheels, and like, yeah, and I'm like,
So
okay,
funny.
like she's like, that was a big fight. I'm like, not really. I was like,
Yeah. You're like big fight. Do you know what a big fight is?
yeah, like that's like that hurricane category 2. She was calling a 4, and I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
Like this is an
Yeah.
argument because we actually don't agree on something pretty fundamental, and like,
Mm,
we got to. So anyway, my question was,
yeah.
like, yeah, what?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So, um, I feel like people probably wouldn't believe me, but I feel like it was like that from day one.
Cool. No, I believe it.
I wouldn't say we've never had an argument, but it's got to. I mean, if I had to count, it would be I could count it on one hand and less than that
Wow, that's
probably, to be
awesome.
honest. It doesn't mean that we didn't have like there weren't times where things were hard, but this is a funny thing. Like if you ask anybody and you just say to fill in the blank, relationships are what would most people say? What would they fill that in with? I've heard people
I
say it a
don't have
million
a,
times.
yeah, I don't have a most, but I would say hard. I mean, that would be,
Yeah, exactly,
yeah, yeah,
exactly. And that's like that's what I've heard over and over again.
yeah,
And we say
yeah,
relationships are, and people go hard. Relationships are hard,
yeah,
and I'm like, bro, why are you in a relationship then if it's so hard?
yeah,
In
yeah,
my mind, I'm like, I don't want to do things that like overall I would describe as hard. Like I want to do things that overall I would describe as enjoyable, and that doesn't mean that there aren't little parts of it that might be hard. But I would not in any way, like by any stretch, describe our relationship as hard, because to
yeah.
me it's like that's just not what it is. But I do believe that that's a choice. Like I think the way that you view a relationship, just like the way you view life, is going to affect the outcome of the relationship or the outcome of your life. So I feel like if you go into a relationship believing that relationships are hard, then they're going to be hard. So I actually, okay, so funny thing, I just wanted to, we were talking about habits before.
Hmm.
I have a course about habits. I wrote a book about habits. And
Cool.
it's just funny because now we're talking about relationships, and that is something I want to do actually in the future. I want to write a book about relationships and probably do like a course and some coaching on it. But I have kind of a controversial like stance when it comes to marriage. Um, so this is okay. I'm only saying that because I have a great marriage, but I 100% believe in divorce. And to be honest, my wife and I have talked about this, and like knowing what we know now, which I'll share with you, but knowing what we know now, it's like I don't think I would even get married. Like if we met each other now,
Yeah.
it's like we
Mm-hmm.
probably wouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So both of us were raised really religious. And now, like where we are now, we're not that way at all. Okay. We've very much like separated from it. We don't like it doesn't influence our life. And for us, part of the reason why we got married is because we were really religious. And that's what you have to do is like if you want to be
Okay.
together, you want to live together, you got to get married.
Yeah.
So we met in March of 2018. We got engaged in July of 2018, and we were married in November of 2018. So like met on Instagram, to be clear, met on Instagram.
Wow.
4 months later, engaged. 4 months after that, married. Okay. And so I'm only saying this because I want people to know like this isn't just like a fluke, you know what I mean? And also I was divorced before, right? So it's easy to just be like, oh, it's just a fluke, whatever. It's like, no. I've had bad relationships. And also like this isn't just like you get what I'm saying, right? I'm just giving
Yeah.
some
No,
background.
totally. No, no, I'm
Um
enjoying this. Yeah.
yeah. So we went into it and we got married because that's, what you do. But now I look at it and there's a couple different things, okay? First of all, I believe in divorce because I think it's like okay, so before my wife and I got married, one of the things I said to her even when we were really religious, I told her, I was like, look, I'm going to tell you right now while we're happy and like looking forward to like the rest of our lives that if at any point you feel like I'm not loving you in the way you deserve, if you feel like I'm not supporting you in the way you deserve, and essentially all of these things, right, that you expect in a marriage, if at any point you feel like that doesn't exist and I'm not putting in the effort to do it, right now when we're happy, I'm giving you permission at that point to divorce me. And I said
Cool.
that to her because for me, like if you truly care about someone, then you would believe that. When you are happy with them, you would believe that. And the reason is because you actually want what's best for them. And when people say that they don't want a divorce later, it's ultimately selfish. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the beginning, when I'm like, oh my God, I love you so much, I care about you, that's when I'm giving you that permission, because I say, I truly care about you more than I care about my own feelings. And I'm telling you, you deserve to have XYZ. And if you don't get that, then I'm giving you now permission to leave. So that was kind of like, first of all, controversial when I told people about it because they were like, what? That's crazy. Like, marriage is for life. And everyone
Mm-hmm.
says that, right? Marriage is
Yeah.
for life till death do us part, all this stuff. And to me, I say that and I put that out there because I feel like it forces accountability, right? It
Mm-hmm.
forces you to show up in a relationship knowing that it's like I have to be the best that I can be in this relationship as often as I possibly can, or else I don't deserve the relationship. This person can leave. I've given them permission to leave. So that's also part of the reason why I don't believe in marriage in general, is because ultimately, um, I think about, like, in terms of, okay, giving my wife what she, love and support and all of those things. But part of it too is if you are living your life to reach your ultimate potential, there is a chance that even our marriage, right? We have a fantastic relationship. I guess there is a chance still, right? That one day, maybe, what she wants to do with her life and to reach her potential does not align with the direction I'm going in my life and reaching my own potential. And like, that's okay. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people, like, they don't embrace change. Okay. They want to hold on and keep things the way they are. It's like, oh, but it's just so good.
Yeah.
And it's like, yes, but it's kind of a cliche saying that the only constant in life is change. But it's true, right? It's
Yeah.
true. Life changes and you have to be able to admit that. But the cool thing is, if you embrace the fact that life changes, then you can change it the way you want it to be. Right. So,
Yeah.
like, for example, my wife and I always say this, is that she knows that she can divorce me and she knows that I can divorce her. And because of that, we will probably never get divorced.
Yeah.
Right? Because we both
Yeah.
know, okay, well, I have to show up as the best version of myself if I want to maintain this relationship, versus I don't think this is conscious, but I do think subconsciously, when you get married, you say till death do us part, right? And it's like a perfect sign here. Cool. You can never leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying it's a conscious thing, but let's just be clear here. You are saying in front of a group of people and signing a piece of paper saying we will be together until we die. Okay. So, like, that's literally what is being said. So whether you want to admit it or not, like, there is a part of you that goes, perfect, cool, this person can never leave me. And
Yeah.
to me, that immediately means, okay, again, not consciously, I'm not saying people try to do it this way, but subconsciously, you're like, it's like you're done, right? Okay, cool. This person's married to me now. Now, will people still put in effort and still trying to be, good spouses? Yeah, of course. I'm not saying they wouldn't. But to me, the default is, if you know that at some point this person can leave, then that means that you're forcing yourself to show up as the best version. And for us, that's worked. And like I said, because we are both okay with getting divorced, I don't think it will happen. And I'm not saying it won't, but I'm saying I just
Yeah.
don't think we'll ever end up in that spot. So I'm
Well, I
sorry, I
think
just dumped a whole ton on you.
no, that was awesome. I have five related thoughts that are each related to like what you
Amazing.
brought up. The
Let's hear
first
it.
and most important one is people who have kids to help save the marriage are doing the opposite of what you said.
Mm.
They're not understanding that if you already have complications and it's already hard, adding a third party that you're both equally supposed to be in charge of is the stupidest solution set
Oh
ever.
gosh.
I did not do that in my first marriage, but what I can speak to is like divorce rates between 0 to 3 years of marriage, divorce rates with children, divorce rates like you're about to
Mm.
hit 7, which is the 7 year itch. Like,
Yeah.
there's these famous statistics they collect, but uh yeah, when you have kids, it's such a game changer in a positive way.
Yeah.
But what you said is exactly true, which is everything's going to change when you have a kid, and it just is. It's not like life, like I'll be fine. It's that literally a new human lives in your house with you, and that human every day gets smarter than you, or sorry, than it was.
Hopefully smarter than me.
Yeah, and then thinks it's smarter than you every day that it has the ability to reflect. The
Yeah.
other thing you said, though, that is the most to me interesting is the entire sell of a prenup is what you said, which is a prenuptial agreement is actually a romantic thing you do when you're in love to make a fair exit clause. And so it's weird because I don't have a prenup, but
Mm-hmm.
ever since I learned that, I was like, oh, that actually is the kindest, smartest thing two people can do is now that we're in love, let's come up with reasonable agreements for how we're going to split property and all this stuff. That, by the way, the reason I don't believe in marriage, the number one reason, this is like point 4 or 5 that I talk
Sure.
about,
Sure.
is the state is just greedy and they want to make money when you get married and they want to make money when you get a
Mm.
divorce. And it's they also want to tell you how much you have to pay someone after a divorce. They want to tell you about
Mm.
who should see a child and why. So like so what's weird is I would not recommend to anyone to have children out of wedlock because the especially if you're a man, the odds are so stacked against you legally, and it's just like a zoo with all that. So
Mm.
with that said, it sucks because we live in a paradigm where, of course, I would recommend marriage to someone for the reasons I just stated, but then I
Yeah.
would also hand in hand say get a prenup And if the person says that's not romantic, ask them, like you said, what is romantic about not trying hard? What is romantic about an excuse to let go? Like, I would
Mm.
never put a like you can't gain weight clause in a prenup. I think that's like absurd, but I actually do understand how someone who is so
Mm.
aesthetically driven and shallow could put that in and just be like, look, I can't control the shallow side of my personality. I'm not saying you can't get wrinkles, you can't age, you can't. I am just saying that, like, I want to be able to go on hikes with you. I want to be able to blah blah blah. So again, I'm not
Mm.
if someone clipped that for some stupid reason, I would come across as such a chauvinist, but um and clearly like it's not relevant what your thing is, but your thing is just your thing. So yeah, I think like when I go to dinner and my wife and I look at a restaurant and we see just like couples on their phones and they're like just like
Mm.
paying for food and service, but like they're actually with someone else. They're with like
Yeah.
their preoccupied world. It's just sad to me. And I'm not telling people like what to do, but that it's funny because you talked about change, and I am obsessed with the meta view of politics right now. So I'm not obsessed with
Okay.
like micro politics like Putin, Trump. Blah, blah, blah. I'm
Okay.
obsessed with the actual idea of like, do politics rule us and do they control us and can we control
Mm.
them? And
Mm.
is that really at the end of the day what would cause a problem in your life? But to me, the slogan of the last 12 years for like the Republican side in our country has been "Make America Great Again," which is a slogan about against change. And so
Mm.
it's very interesting to me that I think wise people who wear red ties and wise people who wear blue ties know that change is inevitable and successful adaptation to change is the meaning of life. Like, or maybe it's not the meaning, but it's the way to go through life without getting
Yeah.
really depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So with all that said, I kind of see like all this kind of segueing in, like our country, like it or not, has been talking about a divorce now for like what, 12 years or some BS. Like, and you're a child of divorce, and I'm a father of divorce, so I have a son from my first marriage, which is the
Mm.
most tragic part of it. I mean, just
Sure. Sure.
like unreal. And I got one when he was 2 because every psychologist said if you get a divorce now, your kid will be so much less affected than if they're aware of it. And like
Mm.
now 11 or 10, however old you are, is a totally different conversation with a
Sure.
psychologist. That's not what we were just talking about 2, 3, 4, 5. And they said, look, if
Oh, I
you're
see.
disagreeing this much when he's 2, you don't want to keep going, and
That's
so
super
anyway,
interesting.
I'll throw it back to you, but how do you feel about the attitude of people in this country right now about like, let's just get a divorce? Like, do you see that as wise? Do you see
Mm.
any relationship to what we just talked about?
When you say get a divorce, like specifically with regard to politics, what do you
Oh,
mean?
like California wants to literally become its own
Mm.
country, and they want to take
Yeah.
Oregon with them, and New York wants to be like, so now we're going to look at like East Pakistan, West Pakistan. Like there's going to be like this,
Mm.
and then like maybe Illinois comes with us or them. I shouldn't say. I'm just from California, so that's why I
Yeah,
said
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But
No, I get it. No,
yeah,
it's super interesting. Yeah, that's funny. I have spent a decent amount of time thinking about politics recently. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have.
yeah,
But
yeah,
also just because, so the way I was raised, like my parents just were not involved in politics at all. And I didn't spend a lot of time thinking about it. And so something you mentioned earlier that I want to address is I actually think that so I think ultimately there can be really large effects on politics in your day-to-day life. They can have a big effect, but I lived the first 30 years of my life not thinking about politics at all, and it didn't have an effect on my
yeah,
life.
dude.
Okay. So I do believe that if you choose to just be like, you know what, I don't care. I don't want to be a part of it. I actually do feel like you can just step away from it and it's not going to drastically affect your life. Now, there are some people who would be like, well, you have privilege and that's why, and all those things. And that might be true. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be 100% right. But what I will tell you is that so I drive a lot of Uber, and I had a passenger who I was talking about this with, and she was not a white man. Okay. And she told me the exact same thing, that was her
Yeah,
experience, that be like growing up, her parents weren't religious. And so, or not religious, they weren't political. And so
yeah,
she didn't talk about it. She didn't think about it until the last few years, and it didn't affect her life at all. And that's of course one person. Okay. But I'm just saying she wasn't a white man. And she said that she agreed and said the same thing. So I'm only saying that it is possible that, that perspective is accurate, and that like, if you don't want to be a part of it, you don't have to let it affect your life. I actually just posted something on social media the other day, like, if you just like go outside and like look up at the sun and look around at the trees and listen to the birds and do whatever, like you realize that all of the BS on social media about how crazy everything is just not true. You step outside and you go, life is pretty amazing, actually.
Yeah.
And I think like if we all just had more appreciation, there would be less of all the political angst going on. But when it comes to like, so this is the thing. I do believe that deep down people are good. Like this is what we've talked about before, right?
Yeah.
Like I really do believe that that is the case. And I think ultimately what everyone wants is just to be happy and live a pretty decent life and just kind of like not have troubles. And I say this from my own experience in, again, I've been driving like rideshare for over a decade. And so I've had like
Cool.
a revolving door of people in my car. And obviously I'm a conversationalist. So, I have conversations with a lot of them. And the vibe that I get from most people, like, all you hear in the news is like all the way to the right and all the way to the left. But like most people are just like somewhere in the middle and ultimately just want to live a life unbothered and, be happy, just be
Yeah.
able to do what they want to do. So that's kind of my perspective on it. I don't really know as far as like, it's interesting how you frame it and like the idea of like a divorce between like the right and the left in the United States. But what I will say is that I actually believe most people fall somewhere in the middle. And so I guess
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's interesting to me too because I come from like the Berkeley area, and so
Yeah.
I actually have a knee-jerk reaction against in-your-face liberals, even though I
Mm.
am like a pot-smoking hippie who like takes 2-minute showers and like drives an electric car and like
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
deeply cares about like a lot of those ticket items.
Sure.
Interestingly enough, I find myself very often defending people who made the decision to vote for a Republican in the last like 12, 15 years
Mm.
to my friends I grew up with and other people I know, even though I did not do that. Like it's very
Okay.
and part of that is because I'm a good person, because
Sure.
good people do what you just did, which is they reflect and like let people be different from them, and they don't like
Mm.
so if you kicked a dog in front of me, I would not say you're a bad person, but I certainly wouldn't see the goodness in you. And
Sure.
so I do have lines I draw in the sand. And so if I go out to stare at the sun and I see people kicking dogs, to keep the metaphor extended,
Yeah.
I do have a problem, and that's a
Yeah.
problem in my locale that I can handle. But what
Yes.
yeah, what bothers me is like I have no ability to even get in the door of the door of the door of someone who might someday meet one of the presidents, and I'm talking about any of them. And like, and I'll
Yeah.
probably never. I actually know through a contact well enough that I can like talk to him. A guy who wrote speeches for Obama and knows like the Biden family and stuff. So I guess technically I could like talk to him about stuff, but like he has any ability, So
Sure.
and so the divorce thing, the reason I brought it up is like I don't like this attitude of like we should just quit and we should just like take our ball and go home, and then like
Mm.
and I do, having moved and traveled as much, that's why I brought up like the people are good thing. I would be very sad if like our country divided. And it's funny that I slipped and said we about California because I haven't lived there since 2016. So I'm actually like approaching year 10 of living in the valley.
Yeah.
Um, and and I lived 10 years outside of California, in Oregon and New York and Pennsylvania. So like I've had these like very like different experiences, and as I get older I just keep seeing how that's going to keep going on. Meanwhile, my kids, two of them, are going to say I grew up in Phoenix, like, and that blows my mind, like
Yeah.
to picture like my offspring saying that, because yeah. So I went off on a tangent and I don't know why I went there, but I will finish this little
Yeah.
point of saying that to people listening and to people who are like fed up with social media, just quit social media. Like it's not like I don't. It's a no brainer. If something's
Yep.
stressing you out, I was in a group chat that was stressing me out, and I just temporarily stopped going in. And I'm not quitting it. I'm not going to go in and say, guys, I quit, because I don't know if in a week I'm going to want to go back in there. But
Sure.
it was stressful watching people argue about what we're not talking about, which is like specifics to like
Mm.
policy and all this crap. And the reason we're not
Sure.
talking about that is because I can tell neither of us care enough to even talk about it, let alone like why would I try to influence a brand new friend I just met who lives in the
Sure.
valley and
Sure.
drives Uber? Like what? Like to what extent? And like meanwhile, if I was on the I Kick Puppies podcast, which I would never
Mm.
go on, like maybe I'd be in some abrasive, horrible, like
Yeah.
argument with you. And
Yeah.
just side note, because I think it's relevant because we have so many things in common. I drove Lyft for 3 years here, and
Oh, okay.
and it was just
Nice.
with one exception, I enjoyed it. The exception was parents who request rides for their junior high school children. That was the worst
Mm,
experience repeatedly for me. So I actually just stopped doing 7:30 to 8:30, like
interesting.
a.m. Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh God.
Okay, so a couple things that you mentioned that I think are important. So when you were talking about like if you step outside and you see someone kicking a dog, what that reminded me of, I was just talking to my wife the other day. I saw this, it must have been like a reel or something like that, but that basically like humans are not designed to carry the stress of something outside of their immediate environment. So like
Yeah.
hearing the news about what's going on in this country, what's going on this side of the world and what's happening all the way over there, it's like I'm not saying that like we should just completely ignore all of that stuff, but we ultimately like are not built to be able to handle all of that. What we are built to handle is what's happening immediately around us. And this is the part that's kind of nuts is like for most people, what's going on around you isn't that bad. Right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you like, I would venture to say 99% of people, if you step outside, are you going to see a crime? Like, are you going to see anybody kicking a dog, murdering somebody, all this stuff? It's like, no, most people are not gonna. It's like, but the news, right, is like it feeds on all of this negative information. Like that's just how it works, right? That's what grabs attention, and so that's what they share. And also, like that's kind of why people watch the news is like what bad stuff is happening, right? But anyway, all I'm saying is that I do feel like if every person focused on their immediate sphere of influence instead of on the entire world would be better. But to be honest, it's already, I feel like, pretty good. That's what I
Yeah.
mean
Yeah.
is, you know what I mean? So I think we could influence things for the better, but I also think if we all had a little bit more appreciation for what our current circumstances are in our immediate area, I think there would be, some more happiness to it. As far as the States things go, okay, I have this like embarrassing thing to admit. So when I was in my early 20s, I was helping somebody move and they had a giant like map up on the wall of the world. And I was looking at it and I was like, I'm looking at the US and then I'm looking at Europe. I'm looking at US, looking at Europe. And I was like, wait, are the states like the same size as countries in other
Yeah.
continents? What? And like I'm embarrassed to say it, but like that's genuine. Like I just never made that connection. Always, right? When you see a globe, you're just looking at one side. Like for the most part, you're not looking at it all together. And when I saw it like that, it like really, well, first of all, it really surprised me because I just never made that connection. But like when you think about it, in Europe, right, the size of the countries, you go from one country to another. It's a completely different language. It's a different culture. There's different recipes, right? All of these things. And then in the US, there's 50, right? Okay, let's say 48 continuous. Um, and they're all the size of countries, but we all speak English. And yes, of course, there's different cultures, there's different foods in different places. But what I'm saying is that, like, first of all, the United States itself is like a huge accomplishment. Like the fact that
Mhm.
we're all like under one government is like a really big deal. Like it's a really big deal, especially
Yeah.
when you look at the differences between these countries and they're like, some of them are smaller than most of the United States. So to me, I guess I don't know how I feel. Like I actually, when I look at the United States, I think that the states themselves, like they're already separated to a certain extent,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it feels kind of like, okay, cool. Well, then like I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I do believe that it's good to have like different perspectives and all of these things. I guess yeah, I guess I just don't know. When I look at the states, I think there's a part of me that goes, okay, yeah, like we don't need to do anything different. Like we're all in the United States, it's fine. Let's just have different viewpoints, and different states will kind of lean different directions. That's fine. But then there's another part of me that's like, bro, like these countries have been around much longer than the United States, and it seems to work for them based on this size of land. Right, and you're
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know, maybe the states should be they're all their own countries and have their own rules and things like that. I don't know. It's
Well,
definitely an interesting thought exercise, though.
Well, and you reminded me of like two things because I had an inverse experience. Well, so you were talking about maps, and then you also used the word globe, but globes are not like maps, right? Because
Yeah,
maps are spread out and
yeah.
they're not actually accurate, right? Like, so we
Sure,
make
sure.
Alaska look smaller than it is, and we make
Yes,
America look. You're not wrong. I'm not contradicting you. This isn't some
sure,
like
sure.
gotcha like BS comment. What I am pointing out though is I had the inverse problem, which is I didn't know that maps were stretched when I was younger, and so I
mm,
didn't understand like that we were actually intentionally making Africa look smaller and making America look bigger
mm,
and things like that. and so it's also of interest to me that like where Europe is very different from us is like Germany is a smallish state, or it's a large state, but it has a population of I think 85 million. The United States total population is 330 million. So now we're talking about density of populations and like stress
Mm,
levels. If
true.
you've been to Tokyo, which I have, like, or New York City has 12 million people in it, and that's our biggest city.
Yeah.
Chicago is our third biggest city, and I believe if you include the suburbs, it's freaking huge.
Yeah.
You know this. So
Yeah.
my point is like your sense of scale and mine is going to be very similar. I grew up in the Bay
Mm,
Area, you grew up in Chicago, so we're like used to like, oh, it's going to be an hour traffic to get
yeah, exactly.
but someone like visiting from Louisville, Kentucky is going to be like, what in the I can't like. You leave your house an hour before a show downtown in Chicago. Like, why? What?
Yeah.
And parking is $80, and like you have to go down 6 levels, and
Yeah.
so it is interesting. Like all this stuff recently has really begun to play in my mind. Just this
Mm,
idea of like, it would be so nice if people. One thing I like about America is you can find your place. If you like Tokyo, go to New York. Like if you like,
mm,
wide open spaces, Wyoming has your name written all over it. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
um, if you need police, like because you fear, like for security reasons, don't buy a country home in the middle of Iowa. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. How do you feel about specifically the Valley, Phoenix area versus Chicago? I'm just curious because like I love Chicago. I
Yeah.
hate the weather. I love Chicago.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was for us. Like we moved because we were just tired of the winters. And for me, I actually feel like Phoenix reminds me of kind of just like a smaller version of Chicago, in the
Cool.
sense
Very
that there's like, you have the downtown area, you have the surrounding suburbs, but it's better traffic because there's like a ton of highways. Like I always tell
yeah
people, I'm like, if you're going from one place to another, like there's literally like three highways that will take you there. So if like one of them has traffic, just like take the other one.
yeah.
And overall, like to me, so when you say about the value, you mean like just overall like weather and stuff like that too?
I think just everything. I'm just curious, like how
Yeah.
you feel about like. Okay, let me rephrase it a little
Sure.
differently. I visited Scottsdale in 1988 as a 7-year-old,
Okay.
and it was a vacation with my parents because my mom's best friend from like high school was dating a rancher out here, like a real man, like not like you and I, like a real like a guy who like knows how to do things and like
Yeah.
can like and he like took me horseback riding, and I saw
Wow.
rattlesnakes. So like that is like a foregone like that place is gone. There's
Yeah.
no thing now we are like the sixth biggest metropolitan area in the United States. Our
Yes.
population is growing. We have no water, but hey, who cares? Everyone just keep moving here. um, and also what you are and what I am is the main reason, which is San Francisco, LA, and Chicago have just been feeding this city.
Mm.
A lot of the Chicagoites, Chicagoans, whatever you call yourselves, because you're not a Chicagoan, you are a Phoenix. I will not
It's
like I
okay.
have the right to like give status,
Don't worry. Don't
but my
worry.
point is you're not a snowbird, and so
Yeah.
that's I'm discounting that part of Chicago
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's just elderly people and Canadians like looking to escape. Although
Yes.
it is a huge subset here for 3 months a year that you have to
It
deal with,
is.
but
Yeah.
I mean, and negative in my opinion. But my overall point was now we actually have a culture. Like there's like we're not
Mm.
cowboys. We're not this like to go back to most people who are much older than us think about Barry Goldwater and like the 1970s when they hear Arizona. Like they think of
Mm.
libertarians. It's like a very like Wild West. But I have actually seen hay going across a highway, and I do see
Oh,
roadrunners frequently
the
enough.
tumbleweed.
Yeah, I have seen tumbleweeds, which is like I just want to like pull the car over and like take photos and send it
I
to like
know.
everyone I know. Like, oh, I live in a place where that shit happens. Like, and the roadrunners.
Uh,
Have you seen? I'm assuming you
yes.
have. I mean,
Yep.
that is
Roadrunners,
the
tumbleweed,
most mind
everything.
blowing shit in the freaking world.
It's
It's like
so
growing up and
funny.
watching Warner Brothers and just thinking like this
Yes.
is fake, and then you see one and you're like, dude, it didn't say meat meat, but other than that, this thing was fucking like straight out of that cartoon. Like,
Yeah, dude, it's so
um,
funny. So in Arizona, I feel like, well, first of all, before you come here, you think, oh, what's out there? It's just the desert. And then you come here and you're like, oh, this is insane. Like, it's amazing. It's huge. Like, there's a ton of suburbs. You've got palm trees and pools and all this stuff. Like, honestly, to me, like Arizona, like the valley in Arizona is like, it just feels like paradise. Like it's
Yeah.
amazing here. Other than, the extreme heat for a couple months in the summer, to me, I take it, it's kind of like our winter. Like we just stay inside
Yeah.
most of the
That's
time.
how I was doing.
As far as but what I will say is that it is funny because there are things like that, like you said, the Roadrunner, or like the the tumbleweed. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, we're definitely in the desert. This is crazy. Like I feel like it's just in movies you think about tumbleweed,
Yeah.
and then you just see it actually going across the road and you're like, wow, that's nuts. But what I will say is that one of the things I really like about Arizona that reminds me a lot of Chicago is that you have a bunch of people from other places who have
Yeah.
moved here. And so to me, because this is really how I feel, is that we all, we like you said, we have differences between us. But I think the more people that you interact with in your life, the more you realize that we're all the same.
Mm-hmm.
And in Arizona, there are people who are super right. There are people who are super left. There's people in the middle. And when you talk to everyone, if you actually are open to just having conversations with everyone and just having curiosity and just genuine interest, you realize is like, oh, we're all the same. And I like having different perspectives. I like being able to hear like someone else's viewpoint that is different than mine, and cause it helps me to like question my own
Mm-hmm.
beliefs and clarify like where I stand on certain things. So yeah, that's my take on Arizona.
That's really cool. No, and actually, the reason I'm on your podcast is that I used to go on podcasts for promotion purposes. I'm an
Mm,
author and other stuff. And then
yeah.
one day it clicked. I was like, no, 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 no. I just want to meet as many people as I can, and this Podmatch site is awesome for that. It is like such a
Yes.
cool, and I miss driving Lyft only for that reason. That
Mm,
I did Lyft as a like a stunt. I like wanted to meet people to get like characters and stuff like for writing. I was just like, oh, this is like
uh,
better than. And also as a kid, I wanted to be a taxi cab driver more than anything in the world. Like I just
really? That's so
yeah, and
funny.
like so, and I loved it. I truly loved doing it. I
Yeah.
didn't like aspects of like the app and like things like I mean like I had like
Sure, sure.
nuanced issues, but the actual job of driving people and making conversation was like straight up my alley, just like yours. It was
Oh
also
yeah.
interesting to like read the room. Like people get in and like they have both headphones on and you just stay quiet and you don't like bug them. And I had one
Yes.
time so I did it after my divorce just in case anyone's and before my marriage. So because otherwise the story would be very gross. But there was this girl and I was like really hitting it off with her and it was the hardest thing ever to not advance it or say anything and just let it go. Like I remember like and it was just once. It was like but I could tell like in a circumstance where there wasn't a power dynamic and all this other stuff,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
would have been happy to get rejected by her. I still like I was getting enough of a vibe, but I was like there's no way I'm going to cross this line because I wouldn't respect myself. But it was still fascinating that like like maybe this has happened to you. Like you might want to be friends with like a riot or something, but
Mm,
like yeah,
yes.
too bad. Like
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny you say that. Like I feel like I've gone through, so like I said, I've done it for a very long time. I've gone through periods where I like hated it and I was like mad that I felt like I had to do it or whatever. And now I've come to this conclusion, which is funny that you're talking about like all that you learned from it. And it's just like, man, it's amazing. Like genuinely, it's one of these things where like you literally, if you want to make money, you just open your phone and push a button. Congratulations, now you can make money and you can meet people and you can talk to them and like hear their stories and like because people are willing to share stuff. It's
yeah,
genuinely like such an amazing experience. And one of the things I talked about when I in my the first few episodes of this podcast is that my experience driving Uber is part of what inspired me to start this podcast, is because I realized, man, I just had a complete stranger come in my car and I had one of the best conversations in my life. And it was just like, I don't need to like, just like when you came on, I'm like, I don't really know much about you. And that's how I like it. I'm like, just tell
yeah,
me, let's start talking. And I wanted to kind of like recreate that experience. And to me, this is what I'll say is like, most people, just by definition of what percentage of people drive Uber, most people are not going to go out and drive Uber and have that experience. And so to me, I'm like, if I can come on this
yeah,
podcast and have these conversations and people realize, wow, like you didn't even know that person. Wait, you guys have never even talked before. And this is what you guys were talking about. I want people to see, first of all, like what's possible, that they can go and have these conversations as well and like get to know people this way, but also that they can hear these conversations, right? Because I was in the car having these crazy, amazing conversations with people. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish other people could hear this. And so now like that's kind of what the podcast is. Like I just have these conversations. We kind of just see where it goes. And I think a lot of them go like amazing, like just genuinely better than I could have ever expected them to. And I feel like every time I have a podcast with someone, that's literally what happens. I'm like, this was so good, and I didn't even expect it to be that good. And I hope people can like listen in and just like benefit from the conversations and like have the same experience that I've been able to have, you know?
Yeah, it's so interesting because you're hitting the intersection of where I am now at like 43, 44, which is I've been in entertainment since I was a kid,
Okay.
and I hate it. I hate talking
Mm,
about myself. I like talking with people, and I like talking and learning, and I like sharing things about myself. But I don't like when you said describe yourself. I hate and I will not do it. I will not come on and be like, well, I'm a writer, and this novel's available
mm,
on Amazon. You know, because
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
like first of all, that's not me and that's not anyone, and I don't like care. Like, if I had dinner with uh, Keanu Reeves, I would want to ask him questions about like being an actor and what it's like to be famous and how hard that is. But I wouldn't actually want to hear him just talk about being Keanu Reeves. Like, that's not
Mm,
what a real conversation is like. So I
yeah.
I loathe the fact that in the entertainment industry, I'm supposed to like advertise for myself and sell things.
Mm,
But what I've learned through like Podmatch is that it's actually just more comfortable and easy to just meet people and stuff. So it is funny because I am not sure if this has happened to you, but do you ever get the guests who made me turn into the guy who like is afraid to even talk about himself? The person who just talks over you and just keeps bringing up the thing they want to sell. Like, does that ever happen to
Thankfully
you? Or
not. Thankfully
wow,
no.
okay,
I think
that's cool.
yeah, I don't know, something about yeah, I've had a lot of people on, and yeah, thankfully no, that hasn't happened.
That's really cool. Yeah, because that was early on with Podmatch. My experience. It hasn't happened in a
Mm,
long time. I've also gotten better at screening people,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's
but
good.
it
No,
is,
that's
yeah.
good. No,
Um,
and I think you know, it's funny when you first said and you were like, "Well, I'll just say my age and this and blah blah blah." I like that because I feel like for a really long time in my life, I had to choose how I was going to label myself. Right. And so I
yeah,
would go and I'd be like, well, I'm this and I'm this. And like, don't get me wrong. Now I would describe myself as like an author and a coach and a podcaster. And those are all true. But like, I never wanted to just be one thing. I wanted to
yeah,
just be able to live my life and like just do stuff. It's actually part of the inspiration for the title is how to be a person, because ultimately
yeah,
it's just like that's all I am. Like that's how I view myself as a person. And I have done and experienced so many different things. I've probably had like honestly like dozens and dozens of different titles of like who I am and what I do. And I think ultimately like in life it's just about like experiencing things. And so I never want to like put myself into a box of like who I am. It's like I just no, because now as soon as I tell you what I am, now I have to do that. Now that like
yeah,
that's what I'm doing, instead of just being like, yo man, I'm a person, I'm just enjoying life and we're just having a conversation.
yeah. And you'll see. I'm so. First of all, it's great to meet you, and I'm just happy
Yeah.
that you're going to be a dad because you are going to be an amazing dad. But also, you're gonna like,
Thanks.
you're just gonna love the process of like watching. Like, so my daughter. So I have three children. Just to be clear, my son is
Yeah.
9, but I don't talk to him a whole lot. He lives in
Yeah.
Thailand. And my two daughters, though, one just started speaking, so I'm not going to talk about her. She's
Sure.
awesome, but the one I'm going to talk about is the middle kid, who's the older one in this family.
Yeah.
She's like 3.5 going on 4, and she's like sassy and all the stuff. But what I love about her is she doesn't care what I do for a living because she doesn't know what a job is, nor could she even understand
Mm.
that. So I don't have to like sell myself to her. I don't have to like be like anything except dad. Like, I'm just the tallest person ever who can beat Spider-Man up. And like, I had an hour-long argument with her. No, it was probably 10 minutes, but about how Spider-Man would kill me. And she just kept being like, no, you would stop him. And like, it was so important to her to think that I am more powerful than Spider-Man. And that's actually
So
like
funny.
really cool. Like, it was like a fun
Yeah.
moment for me because it's totally what you're talking about. And then now I see how, oh, I mean, this is a rude comment to make, but I see why parents lie to their kids and embellish their value because they love that
Mm.
they need a sycophant. I'm not like that, so, but I can see now like how that is because I'm doing my best to say like, no, I can't beat Spider-Man up. I am a flawed human. Like, please see me for what I am. But also, I don't want her to like really see me as flawed because that would actually be dangerous to her worldview and like her building of
Mm.
trust. And like she does need to think that dad can kill a monster. Like, she needs
Mm.
that vibe, and that the same way you and I need to know that if we call 911, we think the police are going to come and save our lives. Like, that's more important than if they actually do. It's the
Yeah.
like or like I do use a deadbolt on my door at night with my kids in the house. Before I had kids, I deadbolt, who gives a crap? Like, I don't care, you know? But now I'm like, no, I need to like know I did that. So if someone
Oh
comes in, at
gosh,
least I
so
know
funny. You know what I will
yeah.
tell you, because I know you have a hard stop time, so
Oh
we're
yeah,
gonna
yeah. Sorry.
wrap it up. But what I will
All
tell
right,
you
cool.
is really funny. I told you I've done a million different things. One thing I got into at one point was picking locks, and I bought. Listen, I didn't do anyone else's locks. Okay, only mine. It
No,
just
I
seemed
love
so.
this,
It
dude.
was so interesting to me. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
bought a lock picking set. I literally within like 60 seconds of opening the set and trying it on my own deadbolt, I opened it. Does
Dude,
it make you so mad? Does it make you
it,
so mad? I'm telling
I
you, dude, I was so angry because I'm sitting here. I'm like,
oh
I've
my
never
god.
done this before in my whole life. And I just opened
Oh,
this in less than a minute. I was like, my life is a lie. Like you think, oh yeah. Anyway, that was
dude.
when I decided I need a security system. But for me, it was just, I thought it was just something funny to
That's
share
awesome. No,
because
and I'm not like a TikTok guy, but that sounds like the perfect TikTok like clip, not because you need to be famous, but literally to spread the word. Like that is something that should go viral. But also this is something I think about too. Like I wonder how people who pick locks and steal would feel if they knew that you were proliferating. You know what I mean? Like I wonder if like that's their like saving grace is they want us
so
all to be
funny.
dumb. You know? So I don't know. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
so
yeah,
true. Well, because look,
yeah,
I mean, look, most people, if you talk to them, they think like you can't get in your house if you put a deadbolt on it. I'm like, the only way that that is true is if there's no way to access the deadbolt from the outside. But if you
yeah,
can
yeah.
access, if there's a keyhole on the outside, like, bro, it's pointless. Like, genuinely, locks on our doors are pointless. If someone wants to get in your house and they know how to pick a lock, they are getting in your house.
This is the best Q&A ever.
Not
I
to
like
make you
love this.
scared. I'm not trying to
No,
scare
I'm
people. I believe people are good. You know what? This is the
yeah,
part that's
yeah,
that's
yeah,
great about it, right? Nobody knows this because no one's picking a lock and going in your house. That's why you don't know. Is because
yeah.
most people are good and they're not picking a lock and coming into your house.
Dude, I've had such a good time. I'm like, can
Yeah,
I just
yeah.
quickly ask you because I'm gonna have to run. I do a podcast called Coffin Talk where we talk about metaphysics and stuff. You would be like an ideal guest. Can I after this email you and book you?
Absolutely.
All right, cool, cool. Because
Absolutely.
I like have so many more questions to ask you, and I love
Yes,
this
yes. No,
conversation.
I would
So
love
like,
I would love to keep talking. Mike, I appreciate
cool,
you coming on, man.
awesome, dude. You're the
All right.
best. Thank you. I really had a great time.
All right, have
Um,
a good day. Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.